And I know there's some English people in the, or English-speaking people in the audience. Is it okay if I speak English to everyone? Yeah. Just ask me if you don't understand. I actually prefer to do this in English because we have a lot of coffee words that I don't really know in Norwegian, so it's better to do in English. Cool. We have 104 slides to go through, so there's a lot. And 45 minutes. So I'll try to be very quick. There might be some time for questions and answers when I'm done. So if we're going to get through this, you guys got to shut up and I have to talk fast. I'm here today to talk about my work in Colombia. Finca Tamana is one of the farms that or the farm that I'm working with there, except my own. I have been working there since 2011, but I started traveling in Colombia in 2007. And just to give you a little info about Colombia, how many of you have been to Colombia? One? Yeah. It's a beautiful country. It's not dangerous. You won't get killed and kidnapped the minute you set foot there. It's a really, really cool place. Most people will, of course, go to the coasts, but the coffee stuff happens in the Andes Mountains, and Finca Tamana and my farm is done around here. So you got to fly to Bogota, and then from Bogota 1 hour to Neva, and then you got to drive 3 hours into the mountains to get to the farms. It's not the area where you have the best coffees. The best coffees, for me at least, it's in Cauca and also down in Nariño. But when I started traveling to Colombia, it was still kind of unsafe to stay there, at least for a long time, and to stay on a farm and work on a farm is a little bit more difficult at the moment as well. But it's opening up. There's a peace agreement that has been signed. Don't really notice much of that, but it's very kind of safe and yeah, nice. So don't be afraid to go there, it's really nice. This is Elias. He is the farmer that I work with there. And I actually met him for the first time in 2007. He had a farm in Acevedo, which is about 2 hours drive from where we are now. He doesn't have the highest altitude at that farm. Didn't really know how to process the coffee well, so I never really bought coffee from him until I met him in 2011 again, where he had purchased 60 hectares of land in Huila, where we are now. And 60 hectares is quite big in Colombia. That means you can produce a lot of coffee. The normal size farm in Colombia is 2 hectares or even less. That's the average size. And with 2 hectares you might be able to produce 10 to 20 bags of really good quality coffee per year. So with 60 hectares, of course, you can produce a lot more. So he had purchased the farm. This is actually when we met. This is the guy on the right, is the exporter that I'm working with, Alejandro Renjifo. And he kind of has connected me and Elias together. So it's not like I just flew into Colombia and like, hello. You really have to have someone taking you around and showing you. You taste different coffees, you meet people. And the reason why I'm working with Elias now is basically because he's a great guy. The coffees that he has or had back then, not the best. But this is at the top of his farm. And before I started working with Elias, I used to buy coffee from behind me. And the guy that's taking the photo behind him is a farm that I used to buy from, which was really good coffee. So there's no reason why Elias's coffee shouldn't be as good. We are just starting to get there now, and we're 6 years later in the work. This was the farm when we started working, so we just took over the house, and basically with the coffee that was already growing on the farm, he would harvest and start paying the loan for purchasing the land. Quite a rural, rustic house, cold water in the shower and so on. This was the only coffee dryer that he had, where he had to dry all the coffees and so on. So the infrastructure was definitely not there for 60 hectares of land. It was kind of built for 2 hectares of land. And already he has planted 27 hectares with coffee. So we had to do something and invest in the farm in order to kind of make it better. This is how it looks like now, and of course you can't see everything, but the farmhouse, which is the kind of big house, has been improved a lot. There's a new kitchen, because they got to feed 40 to 50 people 3 times a day during harvest. There's a new little house here that is actually finished now, where I have a room, Elias has a room, the workers has new rooms, they have new showers, new toilets. On top of it now is a new dryer, and all in all, instead of having 1 coffee dryer, he has 9 coffee dryers. That is much bigger than he used to have. So there has been a lot of improvements for the last 6 years, but we're not done. I mean, we're probably halfway. So there's still a lot of stuff to do, and as you can see, there's always this kind of cheap material used for building stuff, which means you have one little storm and everything is ruined. So for the future, we're going to invest more in heavy building materials that can kind of resist the weather. So I'll show you a little bit of the work that I actually did in 2011. We kind of finished then, so I went down for a week. It was actually 2012 that we started working properly. So Elias got the land in 2011. In 2012, I went down to help him improve the picking and process, thinking that if we just did everything correct, the coffee would taste a lot better, which certainly is not the case. But one of the first things we did, I asked Elias to kind of separate the farm into different plots of land. So we call, for instance, one part of it lot number 9, and on that particular hectare of land he is growing the variety Caturra. So we kind of split and divided the farm into 30 different sections, and now we have maybe 35 different sections, based on like where it is and also what kind of variety it is, which helps us know from which part of the farm do we get the best coffees. That's the idea anyway. Here's the other variety that he had when we started working. So we had 2 varieties, Variedad Colombia, which is a leaf rust resistant plant. I'll show you some photos of that later. And then Caturra, which is kind of the most sought after in Colombia, which is not resistant. So it has a lot of problems with leaf rust. Leaf rust is the fungus that kind of eats coffee trees. So that was the first thing we did. The second thing we did, which is what we started with when I came down for a week to kind of work on the farm with Elias, was to improve the harvesting. Coffee is a fruit that grows on a coffee shrub, and in order to get really good coffee, you have to pick only ripe cherries. It makes sense. And everyone in Colombia, everyone in other producing countries will always tell you, well, we only harvest ripe coffee, hence the quality is good. This could be a dream scenario. This is not in Colombia. This is a photo from El Salvador, where all the cherries ripen very uniformly, so it's easy to pick only ripe cherries. This is more the case in Colombia, because the climate is different. They have a lot of rain, a lot of drought, and they can have unripe cherries, ripe cherries, flowers, overripe cherries, everything on one branch, which makes it really difficult to pick only ripe stuff. This is the bucket that we typically see on the farm, and Elias would say we only pick ripe coffee cherries. It looks ripe, it looks pretty good, but when you start sorting out, we noticed that maybe 50 or 40% of the cherries were ripe, the rest was underripe or overripe, which means if this was a basket of strawberries, you would probably not buy it, right? So the problem with the overripes is, especially in Colombia, when it rains a lot, you get problems with some kind of fungus. So we get phenolic cups that taste really rotten and moldy. With the underripes, they don't have the sugar content, so the coffee tastes nutty and not sweet, and so on. So it's really important to only pick ripe. So we have to teach the pickers. Sounds easy. Probably the most difficult part of harvesting coffee is this process. The pickers don't want to do it. They're underpaid. Takes more time. They normally get paid by the kilos that they pick, not per day. So for them to start thinking while they're picking means less money in the pocket. So we also have to increase the pay almost with 50% because they can pick less and so on. During the first week we worked together, we had a lot of resistance against this, but when they received a bigger pile of cash in their hand on Saturday, they understood, okay, this is pretty cool. They can make more money. But we did have a couple of pickers leaving, they didn't want to do it. And in our area, it's getting harder and harder to get a hold of pickers. It's normally young people who do it, and then they come to a certain age, they want to do something else, because it's not really a nice job. You have to stand in the fields 12 hours a day, even if it's raining, if it's sunny, doesn't matter. You have to pick coffee to make money. And if you're really good at picking, on our farm, or Elias's farm, you'll make around $20 a day. And you get free meal and free housing when you're on the farm, and that's a good pay. Normally on the farm you can make $7 to $10 a day. So it's not a fantastic job, I can tell you that. We try to implement a system where you have 2 containers while you pick, so you pick the ripe, put that in the big buckets, and the bad stuff you put in a Coke bottle on the side. Personally, I prefer this system when I pick, but the pickers don't like it. So they just want to pick into one bucket, which means we need to do something else. So when they come down to the farmhouse and we deliver the cherries, we weigh everything to see how much they picked. We write it down in the book, and they'll get paid by the end of the week. And then they take the cherries to a bucket of water and put everything in there, and then they remove everything that floats, because you can obviously see that that's not the best cherries that are floating. And then afterwards you pick up the stuff that's in the bottom, which are the denser, more mature cherries. But still there's a lot of unripes there, so you have to kind of start to sort it. And this is a system we're using now, where we have a smaller bucket in a bigger bucket with holes, so it's easy to pick out the cherries and so on. The first week I was there, we were just buying some extra bags. We were sitting on the ground sorting cherries, and this is not a nice job. Nobody wants to do this. So the next year we built at least some tables so they could stand up and sort the cherries. But still, nobody wants to do this. They understand that in order for Elias to sell the coffee for a higher price, and in order for him to then being able to pay them more, they need to do it. Nobody wants to do it. It's really, really pain in the ass to do this. But at the moment, there are no machines that are affordable enough to replace this kind of work. So until that arrives, if there's any engineers here who can invent a machine that does this, please do so. So what happens now is that they will sort cherries, and Elias will go and control it. And then when he says you can go and deliver the cherries, we deliver the cherries to the reception tank. Here's another guy. This is the stuff that we sort out, which means this kind of coffee Elias will get next to nothing for. He can sell in the local market for, it's almost better not to go and deliver it, because the gas money is more than he will receive in terms of money. And before he used to deliver that with a good coffee, so this means the coffee is already becoming more expensive because of the picking, the sorting, and also the wastes that we're getting from the unripe stuff. So after sorting, we need to process the coffee, and this is something that in Colombia is very popular to do on the farm, whereas in Africa, for instance, the farms are too small, so they will deliver to a cooperative, and the coffee gets kind of treated and processed at a cooperative. But in Colombia, every single farmer will have a small mill, wet mill, where they process the coffee. And everyone knows how to do it, theoretically, but nobody really does it in a systematic way. So my job as a Norwegian or Scandinavian, we're kind of good at being systematic, at least a little bit more than the farmers in Colombia. because they're not used